Welcome to DOS Hunt. I'm Jean-Pierre Ruth for Information Week. And in this episode, we'll be taking a look at something that's been going on in recent weeks, looking particularly at some of the fallout that's been associated with a rather notable breach that kind of put cloud security under heightened scrutiny. Uh, in that particular instance, the customer data from concert ticket vendors and even data from a Los Angeles school district were allegedly compromised. Rather than just dissect that specific incident, we're going to have a conversation to look at what could, maybe should evolve in cloud security and who needs to take action to drive the change. Is it up to cloud companies to have sole responsibility for keeping bad actors at bay? What role should the enterprises that are making use of cloud resources, what role should they play in maintaining security of the resources that they are entrusting to the cloud? And does this mean that end user customers, are they completely at the mercy of the decision that either group makes in this space? For this particular topic, I'm very pleased to have a good breadth of experts with me. First, we have Chaim Mazal, Chief Security Officer with Gigamon, Kat Traxler, Principal Security Researcher with Vectra AI, Joel Moses, Distinguished Engineer and CTO, Platforms and Systems with F5, Tsvi Korren, Field CTO with Aqua Security, and my good buddy Shane Snider, Senior Writer with InformationWeek. All of you, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to be here.
Okay, so this is, it definitely is a kind of a hot button topic as the kind of particular ramifications of this, what was, been attributed to the Snowflake breach, but there are broader conversations to be had beyond just, what, may be what's going on with them. One of the things that I was hoping to really look at is, I guess, start with looking at why cloud resources, the cloud space, why this has become a prime target for bad actors. And Chaim, I was hoping that you could kind of lead us off with your perspective on why the cloud space has become something that bad actors want to go after.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for most major organizations who are successful, complexity is guaranteed. And as organizations venture into public cloud offerings, right, you have a multitude of people, multitude of skill sets. And unfortunately, that complexity creates a lot of opportunity for cracks. And so without having, unified visibility, unified controls in place, it makes it low-hanging fruit for a lot of bad actors. So I think one of the biggest problems that we're experiencing as we continue to grow with most Fortune 500 companies somewhere in their cloud transition, again, we're still behind the ball as far as our abilities internally to be able to facilitate all the activities that need to happen to build those secure environments. So I think we have a diversity of skill sets. And then I think because it's still new and emerging, we also have a lot of unique, cloud offerings that are pretty divergent across the board, whether using Azure, AWS, GCP. And so this kind of unified thread of visibility, security, control implementation, and auditing and continuous threat modeling and monitoring, it might not be as mature as we see it for a lot of different on-premise deployments across organizations.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you for that. Kat, question for you. How sophisticated do these bad actors need to be, or at least maybe the approaches that they're taking? How sophisticated are we talking that these things are, that in order to really compromise cloud services, are they very kind of like direct, or are they very intricate? What kind of dark magic is being put into play here?
Thanks for the question, JP. Thanks for having me on. To kind of pivot off of Chaim, the low-hanging fruit, right? It's as a security researcher, I would love to see advanced tactics in an environment. These are the kind of tactics that I research all day long, right? The dark magic, the sneaky attacks. But truth be told, it is just hard-coded access keys all day long. It is credential management. It's the boring stuff that is getting people. It is publicly accessible resources. It is the simple hygiene that threat actors are abusing, or the lack of hygiene. And it pains me to say this as a cloud researcher who would love to get more into the weeds with the cloud, but we're just not seeing that threat actors need to.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Tsvi, I've got a question for you. What has been, from a cloud security perspective, what has been frustrating or is kind of shown to be not as effective as it could be in how maybe things are implemented, how things are positioned? What is there any sense of something that should be working, once it's actually put out into the wild, or put into practice, but there might be just like a tendency for whatever reason that it just doesn't actually, maybe I won't say deliver, but maybe there's some things that go on, maybe some decisions that are made that get, kind of limit the effectiveness of that kind of cloud security resource that should be there.
Yeah, the reason why attackers go after cloud is because that's where the data is, right? In order to have a lot of data, people use cloud services that are robust in scale, and like Kat said, it's really the basic stuff that kind of gets not managed properly, and that's really the problem. The problem is that a lot of those decisions that are made around the architecture of a cloud service or a cloud application is not done with security in mind. It's done with operational efficiency in mind, with scale in mind, with speed of delivery, but not a lot of forethought about the security of the whole thing, and then shortcuts are being taken. So the organizations that are, I know there's a question after that, but ultimately responsible for their own infrastructure and data, the decisions are not made where they should be made. The decisions are made by developers, by development teams, by application designs that are looking for ways to quickly and efficiently deliver their applications, but not necessarily have security as one of the things that they think about in the front, and that leads to all those misconfigurations and public keys and everything that enables an attacker to basically go after that infrastructure.
Right. Thank you for that. Joel, question for you, kind of the flip side to that. What has shown itself to continues to be effective when it comes to security, when it comes to the cloud space? What is actually working? I don't want to make it all about, the cloud's bad. Right. We need to change everything. Just kind of like, yank the tablecloth from underneath everything and start over.
That's a great question, and I would agree with the other speakers on complexity is high for some of these solutions. The attackers are particularly attracted to cloud targets because they are where data is stored. They're generally always publicly accessible, so the reward is high, the risk is low, the opportunity is great, and so attackers really like these sorts of things. I think that the most effective elements of security that we have to attack some of the problems that we have with cloud security today are some of the most oldest and tired and oft forgotten things. Configuration management works, and making sure that you have visibility and insight into how things are configured and you have better controls employed than the defaults that cloud providers typically give you. That's incredibly important, and it's always effective. And unfortunately, I think as security professionals, sometimes it's the thing we think the least about. A good example is, in some cloud environments, networking defaults encourage overlapping configurations. Lifetime defaults on things like keys and secrets are usually poorly set. The defaults for IAM surrounding cloud services are really bad. And so making sure that you do the minimum to make sure the proper controls are in place, and then checking to see whether those controls are enforced. That's effective, and it's available.
Right. Great. Thank you for that. Now, Shane, I'm hoping that you can lead, give some perspective from your reporting for what you've seen on this question. And then I'm going to invite all of you actually to comment along with. What has been at least some of the sentiment or thought regarding responsibility for security of the data that lives in the cloud? Is it the question of like a particular Snowflake instance? Well, is it the provider? Is it the enterprise end user? Is it both of them? Is there somebody in a hut somewhere that's supposed that that everyone's pointing the finger to and they're not sure who it is?
Right.
Snowflake is a little specific, but please just give some thoughts on like what you've seen in your reporting, and others just add in your thoughts after, please. Thank you.
Sure. So for vendors, I think sort of the default position is, oh, it's a shared responsibility, and that might be true to some respect, but with multi-factor authentication, that was like the biggest missing element here that led to these attacks, and that definitely could have been enforced at the Snowflake level and at their client level. So I think there are, while there's this concept of shared responsibility, I think there's a chance to unify an approach for it. If we think about zero trust, it changes from organization. If I ask 10 people what their definition of zero trust, I'd get 10 different answers. So I think there's maybe an opportunity for, and I know everyone would hate to hear it, but some regulation to really codify and unify some of these approaches, because it's all over the map. Everything they talk about, some people might think, well, MFAs, it's, I'm not going to get the sales that I was going to get because people think it's a pain, or whatever. But if it's something that you have to do, then you have to do it. That's my feeling, and that's what I get from people I'm talking to.
Yeah, I can add to that if you make the analogy for cars, right? Cars didn't used to have seat belts, then they had seat belts, then the law started requiring seat belts, and now in modern cars, if you drive without your seat belts for a few yards, the car is going to let you know about it very aggressively. I think we are at a point right now where the cloud does have the seat belts, right? It does have the ability to close down the configuration. The regulation is approaching there. And one of the things that's missing is some good defaults on the cloud, and also good warnings to save users from themselves, so that they are not getting themselves into risky situations just because of ignorance or just because of speed of delivery. So I think it's on the cloud providers to facilitate good security. I still maintain that it is actually the end user, the enterprise that holds the data, is ultimately responsible for the governance and security of that data.
Yeah, 100%. So I do agree also with zero trust. There's a lot of different organizations, or a lot of different phases and levels of their maturity. I do think there are good frameworks with NIST. I do think there's good frameworks with CISA as well. Ultimately, I think vendors who take the most responsibility, like these are the vendors that I want to do business with. But at the end of the day, right, my cloud, my deployment, my controls, my configurations, I have to hold myself and my organization and my teams accountable. And I think some of the government regulations and things that we're moving towards are really helping drive that in real time. We're seeing now that executives, right, at the highest level, are being asked to sign attestations and commit to their responses. And I think we're watching this change the culture of most organizations in real time. But I just want to say, I've been a Snowflake customer for probably nine years now. One of my, I'm a big proponent, helped me transform a lot of technological advances at a lot of organizations. And I do think, again, like most strong vendors that I firmly support, the more they do, the better off we are, right? The more of a partnership it is. But at the end of the day, selecting the right tools, the right vendors, and having the right oversight, really being able to enable your teams is the winning recipe. So the answer essentially is yes, right? Security is everyone's responsibility, and we have to be all in together in order to be able to safeguard our customer data, which is the ultimate goal here.